You are watching the Deadfoot Diver Podcast with Curt, the Deadfoot Diver.
Welcome to the Deadfoot Diver Podcast, where we discuss everything diving, technical diving, and also diving with disabilities and the benefits of it. Today, I am super excited to have on the show Dr. Neil Hammerschlag. Dr. Neil Hammerschlag is a world-leading marine biologist with a passion for sharks. He also is the executive director of the Shark Research Foundation, the president of Atlantic Shark Expeditions, and also on the faculty of Black Girls Dive Foundation, just to name a few. Welcome, Dr. Hammerschlag. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Awesome. Very excited to have you on the show today. One of my favorite subjects in diving and the ocean is sharks. So I'm super excited to have somebody like you on the show today, and especially with the fact of that you actually want to get more disabled people out on your boats diving with sharks.
Yeah, that is a goal, and we think it's, you know, shark should be for everyone, and I love spending time in the water with sharks, and we're hoping to make our platform where we bring people out to see sharks more accessible.
Which is awesome. I mean, so how did you first get into an interest in diving and then concentrating on sharks?
So diving, I mean, I since a young kid I always loved the ocean, and I was born in South Africa, and I was fortunate enough that my family would vacation off Cape Town or Durban, which is on the coast of South Africa, and I had exposure to the ocean that way, and just always wanted to be in the water and become a scuba diver. And even as a little kid, 8 years old, I would strap like 2 liter pop Coke bottles to my back and pretend it was a scuba tank and kick around in the swimming pool or the ocean. And so as soon as I could get my dive license when I was 12 years old, I got that. And yeah, and then when I was going to school, due to my love of the ocean, I figured I'd take a stab at marine biology. And so I was at the University of Toronto, and I didn't, obviously, there's no ocean in Ontario. And so
Sadly.
sadly, so I had to, improvise a bit. No, so in my kind of winter and spring and summer breaks, I would try to get experience volunteering with different research groups to kind of get hands-on experience in marine biology. And I happened to volunteer with an organization that was studying sharks off of California, and I was enthralled, so excited, and I really enjoyed the experience, but also gave me uh, reason to learn more about sharks. I did a lot of reading about sharks at the time, and that's also when information was becoming publicly available, that shark populations were declining globally due to overfishing. And so I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to kind of dedicate my own profession as I get into it to trying to conserve sharks. And so I've pretty much been headfirst into trying to conserve sharks through research and education ever since then. And that has led to being the executive director of the Shark Research Foundation, and also developing Atlantic Shark Expeditions, which runs out of Nova Scotia. It's an opportunity for the public to come and experience sharks, to go cage diving with sharks out here off of Nova Scotia, and to help support research.
I am super excited about that. Actually, it's as soon as I heard your program launched a couple of summers ago, I said to my wife, I said, I got to cage dive. Especially at that time, I wasn't even diving again, but due to the fact that you guys do it on a hookah, so you don't even need a scuba certification. And it has always been a dream of mine to be in a cage with a shark. So, what's it like to be in a cage with a shark?
Well, anytime being around a shark is amazing. Being in the cage is a surreal experience. I mean, some people can spend hours down there. Others, they get in the water and they're in this box, and it's intimidating. But it's definitely, it's a bucket list thing for many people. And what a super way to have like a thrill and an amazing experience while at the same time contributing to science. Because while we're on the boat, we are collecting scientific data, and the boat, essentially, ecotourism funds the research. So, if the boat doesn't go out, then we don't get to do research to help conserve sharks. So every person who comes on the boat, they get to cage dive for science.
That's awesome. So what else do you do as part of your regular duties on the day when you're taking people out to do research?
So when we head out of people will board the boat, we give a briefing, then we head out to a special location that we've selected where we think our chances of encountering a shark are high, and we'll involve the guests in taking water temperatures, visibility measurements, and then we then will deploy our cage, put bait in the water, and wait a while to bring in a shark. And during that time, we educate people about sharks, shark biology, shark research, shark conservation. We do like trivia, shark trivia, which is kind of a fun way to educate people. We do show and tell while we wait for the sharks to show up. And once the sharks show up, we get in the water and we do rotations. Everyone gets to see the sharks. And we document the number of different sharks we see, the species, the length, the sex of the shark, if there's any unique identification marks, and also if the sharks are showing any signs of injury or have hook wounds or entanglements with plastic or human debris. And we note all that information as part of our database, and we take photographs of it, and all of that goes towards our data monitoring.
That's amazing. Do you guys also tag them on the same day when you're out there?
Depends on the species, yeah. So we are doing research on great white sharks. So the species we get include blue sharks, mako sharks, poor beagles, and great whites. And for the great whites, we do tag them. And so we don't hook the sharks to tag them. So we are coming up with kind of innovative ways to be able to tag a free swimming shark without actually having to restrain them at all.
So what kind of methods do you do that so that the shark doesn't get hurt when you're doing it, tagging?
Yes. So we're last year we focused on using a pole that in the end of a long pole had a clamping system, like a spring loaded clamp with a tag on, that we would try to get it on the dorsal fin of the shark. That proved to be very challenging because you have to have the perfect angle, and the shark has to be really close by and has to be above the surface. And the biggest issue is, when you have a long pole with something heavy dangling on the end, it's really hard to keep it steady. And being the
Especially
one
the
who was doing the
waves.
tagging, yeah, that wasn't easy. So you could basically touch the fin, but like just be off by a centimeter, and that's not good enough. So we're looking at ways next year to do it differently. I think we might actually use kind of a specialized tag that we can deploy with like a with like a well, I'm not going to get into it, but we'll see. Let's first get the permits, but we're coming up with a pretty cool way to deploy it.
I'm interested to see that. I would love to actually help you tag a shark. That
That
would
would be
be
cool to
huge.
have you on the boat while we tag a shark for sure.
That would be a huge bucket list thing for me. I mean, I've first of all, let's dispel some myths about sharks, like and their danger, and because everybody, I talked to an experienced diver the other day. Actually, he's a really advanced instructor. And for instance, he was terrified as a child from Jaws. So his first reaction, you're nuts. See, I'm not going in a cage. No way. And yet he's hand fed sharks and stuff. But to put him in a cage, forget it.
Well, the thing about being in the cage, I think it's a really easy way to observe sharks because you don't even have to really know how to swim because you're contained, right? So I think a lot of people are scared that what they've seen in some movies, not just Jaws, but that the cage could somehow get dislodged from the boat and dropped in the bottom of the ocean, which is not going to happen. Only in the movies. Our cage is connected to the boat. I mean, it's literally mounted to the boat. The top of the cage actually sticks out of the surface of the water. It's about a foot above the water, so you could be in the cage, and if you wanted to lift your head out, of the water. So we communicate with everyone who's in the cage, because they can lift their head out. We can say, "Hey, how you doing?" And then they kind of crouch down and have the experience of the shark swimming by. So it's not a scary experience. I mean, the biggest, if anything, if the boat is obviously a moving platform, you got the waves ocean, so you could bang into the side of the cage, but that's the biggest risk you face, is actually making contact with the cage. Not Has nothing to do with the shark, and it's certainly nothing to do with the cage coming loose or anything like that. It's a super safe experience, and it's definitely a surreal one.
Well, that's good to know, because I mean, my wife, as much as she promotes me diving, I'm sure would like me to come back alive from doing a cage dive. So,
Yeah, we try to bring most of the passengers back, at least the ones we like.
oh well, that's good. So I'll remember to stand your bad side so I don't become shark bait. Because with my leg and stuff, I'll look like an injured fish anyway. So,
Yeah, well, that's the nice thing in the cage. They don't see you. They just see the shape of the cage, to be honest. So it's like, as long as you stay within that cage, you're fine.
so what? When you do your tours, you run out of two locations to get different species of sharks, right? So,
Yeah,
what do you want to explain that, and which sharks
yeah,
you're likely to encounter and when?
yeah. So this next year, we're going to be focusing from July 1st to Labor Day. So just the beginning of September, July 1st to September 1st, maybe even September 8th. We're going to focus off of the coast of Halifax. So we're going to leave off a place called Sambro, which is a nice kind of quaint fishing village. There's not much going on there, because it is a fishing village. We're going to leave from a dock there, where it's a relatively short run to get to offshore waters, and we'll be targeting there blue sharks, mako sharks, and porpoises. The most common we're going to probably encounter is the blue shark, which is an amazing shark to have around the cage, because they are very curious. And once you get the blue sharks around, they'll probably stick around, and sometimes they come in multiple sharks at a time. So at one point, this year we had 4 blue sharks at the same time around the cage,
Wow.
which is amazing. The water is kind of crystal clear. It's you can get, I mean, for this type of offshore water, yeah, you could easily 50 feet clear, and you have blue sharks, other pelagics. You have mako sharks, which is exciting. Poor beagles, relatively rare, but they'll come in, but they don't stick around. They generally come in hot, and they take a look around, and then they leave. But these are pelagic animals that not many people get to experience. So it's a lot of fun and excitement. Then for kind of the later end of September and all of October, we're going to shift gears to the southern tip of Nova Scotia, near Yarmouth. So it's another kind of fishing village that we're going to working out of, called Lower West Pubnico, and there we're going to focus on the great white shark. We had success seeing them this past year at that time, and the water is definitely murkier. So it's definitely, the visibility, probably averages around 10 feet. So our goal is to get the shark super close, within 10 feet. So that's not an
Should be
issue.
amazing with a great white.
Yeah, so we got to get we trying to get that shark close, with the goal of getting, that is, uh, those experiences are, part of the research. The research is permitted by Department of Fisheries and Oceans, species at risk, um, because the sharks in Canada are protected, and we get to interact with them as part of the research, and people from the public get to experience that research, learn from the researchers, and see the research. Plus, they contribute, because any of the photos that the guests get of the great whites, we use to actually build a photo catalog and ID database.
Oh,
So,
awesome.
yeah, we work with our colleagues collaborate with colleagues in New England, out of Cape Cod, who maintain a database of sharks, great whites they've been seeing there. They've ID'd a whole bunch of them. And so we send our photos to them, and we cross reference it against their ID database, and we look to see if it's the same sharks, different sharks, and any seasonality. And for example, I mean, last year, our analysis showed that, of the great whites that we get off of Nova Scotia, very few of them are actually the same ones that are being seen off Cape Cod. So it looks like maybe we have some sharks that visit us that don't visit Cape Cod. So it's kind of cool.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Deadfoot Diver. Subscribe and share. Your support means the world to me. If you'd like to contribute directly, you can do so at the link in the description at buymeacoffee.com/deadfootdiver. Every donation helps me work towards earning my adaptive dive buddy certification, travel costs to help me assist other adaptive divers, and covering further training and equipment costs, bringing you on even more exciting adventures. Don't forget to check out my guest links in the description. And remember, grab an adventure and live, and don't ever let a disability keep you down. Wow, that's amazing. So when you were starting Atlantic Shark Expeditions, did you have a lot of trouble getting permits to be able to do this type of thing?
For the white sharks, yeah, I mean, it's not hard to get permits in the sense that you obviously can, if you want to work with the species at risk, you need to demonstrate that the activities you're going to do is actually going to support their survival and conservation. So I think the bigger issue for us was actually how what we were doing was being communicated to the public. There's some people who were raising like an alarmist bell that somehow doing this research on the animals and bringing people with to see the sharks and experiencing it would somehow, turn these sharks into man eaters that would somehow end up, threatening people who are going in the water. But, there's no science to demonstrate that. And it's not like we're out there feeding the sharks. You can't create a shark location. You got to go where the sharks already are. And the sharks are out there to eat seals and do whatever they're doing. We're just hoping to kind of, keep an eye out on them, trying to spy on them when they're out there doing whatever they're doing. And they're going to do it whether or not we're there or not.
No, that's true. I mean, I've actually when you guys first started, I'd actually talked to people out in Nova Scotia because I have relatives out there. And some of them were saying that, they were worried because they were worried that all of a sudden there's going to be a lot more great white sharks around and stuff like that. There's going to be more shark attacks.
Yeah,
So what do you have to say to these people?
well, I think, if they have the time to listen and want to learn, I can tell them what the science shows. And the science shows that, great whites, first of all, they're not going to, you know, they're relatively rare. It's actually not easy to get them to come by, even in a place where they're at. Most of the time they're doing their own thing. So we're just trying to get their attention with bait. And we don't operate in a place where there's a lot of people. We operate in a remote location. And if you go to a place and put bait in the water, it's not going to bring more sharks to that spot. You got to go to a spot that sharks already are at. So you're going to a spot that the sharks are already there. And the bait we put in the water pales in comparison to the amount of bait that's being put in the water by their natural food, which is, seals and tunas and other things. They're the reason the sharks are there. And, there's a ton of fishing activities that are going on, that are putting a lot of bait in the water. Again, that we're no match for in terms of the quantity. And then you're not going to create the sharks to even associate, a boat or people with food unless you're feeding them constantly. If you have to feed the same individual constantly over time, and our goal is that's not what we're doing. We try not to feed the sharks. Every now and then they might steal a bait, but that's certainly not the intention. And also what science shows from South Africa and Australia is that basically, even where there are places where there are great white ecotourism going on, is that these sharks don't seem to become habituated. Especially if you're responsible and are out there, feeding them. And that's so, and we're out there, we're trying to study what these sharks are doing, and I think we can actually be a benefit to the community because we can tell them, where sharks are, when and where sharks are around, and I think that provides people with an awareness so they can make choices of how they want to, what they want to do in the water, because there's a lot of people that don't even know that there's great white sharks um, patrolling the some of the beaches of Nova Scotia. And so I think creating that awareness for people is a very important way to help keep them safe.
I have actually heard that. I mean, my wife is like, yeah, you make sure you bring all your dive gear when we go to Nova Scotia, and then she goes to tell me, oh yeah, by the way, there's been some great whites spotted right off her dad's property almost. So
Exactly. But they know, there's a lot of people who don't know. And it's important to educate people and also to understand what are the types of sharks that are here? How big are they? What are they here trying to do? What are the temperatures they like? What are the depths they like? What times of year are they here? When are they most abundant? Because that type of information not only is important for conserving the sharks, but also if you're a human water user and you want to limit your exposure to these sharks, then you might not want to go during peak periods when the sharks are around, or the type certain temperatures or things like, or places that they really like to spend time at.
So do you guys post any of your stuff on a specific website to track the sharks, or so that people can actually view and see like what the shark activity in an area is?
So we haven't successfully tagged any sharks yet. Like I said, this past year we weren't able to get any tags out. It was a challenge. So hopefully next year we will be able to. And we'll certainly, we won't have like uh, at least not yet, have an app or anything like that where we can track them in real time. But I think we'll try to post, updates daily of on our social media of where any sharks that we tagged are at, so that people can learn from that for sure.
Which is amazing. So
Yeah.
with,
And
with
it's important because it engages people, like all the groups that do that type of activity. It's really engaging, and it creates awareness and knowledge.
No, I completely agree. And I mean, sharks have been endangered for years due to overfishing and stuff like that. Is shark finning still a big problem?
Shark finning is still a big problem, not in, Canada or the United States where it's illegal. I mean, many places shark finning is becoming banned, which is great. But shark finning doesn't prevent sharks from being killed. It just prevents the way that they're being killed. Shark finning, the definition of shark finning is not removing shark fins or selling shark fins. Shark finning is where you essentially catch a shark at sea, remove the fins at sea, and dump the body back in the water at sea. It's not illegal, for example, in many places where finning is illegal. It's where places where there are finning bans where you can't do that. Many of those places you still can capture the shark at sea, bring the shark back to shore, and then cut off the fins at shore and discard the body. So
Really?
that's not called finning. Yeah. So finning is the definition of finning involves dumping the rest of the body at sea. So if you bring the body back to shore, that's not finning. So even places that have where finning is illegal, you can still, essentially bring the shark back to shore and remove the fins. And it turns out that is also now created a bit of a demand for inadvertently for shark meat. So again, it's banning shark finning is not banning shark killing, or what it's doing is it's the way the sharks are being killed. So it as a result, it looks like, in the last decade, the number of sharks that are being removed from the oceans hasn't gone down. Shark mortality has not gone down really. It's about the same overall number of sharks that are being killed globally, and that's because now in addition to fins, there's also demand for shark meat. And but there is hope. That it looks like areas that have very strong protections, like where like marine protected areas that where fishing or shark fishing is illegal, it is supporting shark recovery in those places. Also places like United States that have very stringent regulations on shark fishing, it seems like those populations are faring better, and in some cases recovering compared to other areas where there are no policies in place to protect sharks or regulate the catch of sharks.
Which is unfortunate. Hopefully, these countries are going to tighten up their laws a bit. I mean, I've noticed just from traveling and stuff, seeing shark more on the menu for certain restaurants. I have not tried shark.
Yeah, neither
So
have
I actually that's one sea creature I will not try. I will not eat a shark. I've eaten beluga and I've eaten narwhal from when I lived up in the Arctic, but I there's no way I'll eat a shark. It's not gonna
Probably wouldn't be
happen.
very healthy for you.